What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to Master Crafted. Our boy Phil just went off and played some sweet, sweet teams for the first time in 11th edition, and that is what we are talking about today. Going to talk about some of his games, some of the things he learned, maybe enlighten ourselves on some of the things that G-Dub hasn't maybe made completely clear, but they gave us some more nuance at that event, thankfully. So, Phil, glad you made it back home safe, buddy. Glad you had a good weekend. How are you? How did the event go?
It was great. It was good to see the first event of 11th edition. It was so interesting to see all the ways that people were adapting and like getting after this. Because for me, this edition has been like information overload. Like the amount of stuff that's out there and the amount of stuff that's going to be like accessible to players to play the game has been very interesting. And I think as the game becomes more and more balanced, like that's going to be great. So yeah, I had a good time. I played with a team called Event Horizon, one of our good buddies, Malachi Fowler, who came out to Wyoming, and then I played against him at when I went out to New York. He invited me to come play for his team, Event Horizon, so that was a good time, and yeah, it was good.
Heck yeah. Well, you guys did pretty well. Ended up sixth, I do believe, which
Seventh
is
overall.
seventh overall. Okay. Very respectable either way. How big was the field for this event?
So there were 32 teams total, if I remember correctly. I could check. 31 teams, one dropped at the last minute. So 31 teams total at the event as a whole.
Nice. Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and let's talk about the games. We can deep dive some of the other stuff as we go. So lead the way, Phil. What are we talking about first?
Yeah, we'll go over my list real quick just so everyone has a good understanding. Is I got asked to play Death Guard, and we'll go through some of the rulings that we got because there's a reason why we did this. And I was asked to play priority assets. So there's a lot of different ways you could do this. I found that unfortunately, if I was unable to play Virulent, which is take and hold, if I wasn't able to play that, I'd have to be a little bit more imaginative with my list building. So yeah, that's what we're at. So I played the three single DP detachments of Contagion Engines, Flybone Host, and Paragons of Putrescence. For those that don't know, Contagion Engines gives all my vehicles assault. Flybone allows 2 units of Plague Marines to infiltrate, and Paragons allows me to +3 to all my lead units, my character units, +3 to their contagion range right off the bat. So they start off at 6 and they can get to 12 at the end of the game, which is very nice. I had a Lord of Virulence with 3 Death Shroud, a Lord of Contagion with 3 Death Shroud, another Lord of Contagion with 3 Death Shroud. Just say right off the bat, the reason I did this is because GW ruled that Death Guard or Death Shroud Terminators have their 6-inch rapid ingress back. So I said, cool, I'm going to take 3 of those because they're very solid. I took a Tallyman as solo, mainly for the reason that I believe in 11th edition, if you don't have CP generation, you will feel it. Now, there's some armies that need it more than others. Mine definitely needs it. So having a Tallyman super, super important for getting the army going. I was running 2 squads of Plague Marines, each with a Malignant Plaguecaster. I love this unit. For me, Plague Marines, they go out, they absolutely murder things. They have so much efficiency in combat, so much efficiency in shooting. Like they do everything that you want, and they're just empowered by the auras of contagion. So we're running 2 of those with Playcasters, 3 heavy blight launcher drones, 3 Myphetic Blight haulers, and 1 10-man of Poxwalkers. Sometimes they held my home, sometimes they went out and did actions and objectives, sometimes they held the middle. They were kind of like, yeah, they did everything. So yeah, that's my list. 2,000 points. Lane, any thoughts?
That is a lot of good data sheet spam right there. That is we're sticking with what we know is good, and we're just shoving as much of it into a list as we can. I mean, when it comes down to it, that's just Terminators, just Plague Marines, just Blight drones, and just Mephitics, basically. There's some salt and pepper and other stuff in there and leaders, but overall, that's just good data sheets doing what you need them to.
Yeah, I tried doing like cute things with a bunch of different stuff. And at the end of the day, because I was so like, I played 20 games of 11th edition before going into this tournament. I did not feel comfortable. I was very uncertain of what the meta was going to look like. I hadn't even played all the combination of missions. I hadn't seen all the maps. I was like, I just need to play like good things that I know are solid. and then I can expand from there. So, maybe that's a piece of advice for all the players out there of like trying to do all this really inventive stuff with 11th edition. At the end of the day, like until you get comfortable, I want my list and my units to be the last thing I'm thinking about. I know like how efficient these units are. I know what these units do and these combinations do. I don't really need to think about that anymore. I just spend a lot of time on like just playing the game and the new secondaries and remembering my opponent's primaries and how they were interacting with mine, and it was very interesting. So yeah, yeah. Just took the good stuff. Industrial
Yeah,
Terminator. Those are pretty good.
and 3 single point detachments. So,
Yes.
were you the only one there who did that? I don't know if you actually looked through the list to that degree, but if you know that you're the only one, I think that's funny.
I think I was the only person to take 3 single Death Guard 1-point detachments, that's for sure.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, let's go ahead. Let's dive right into round 1. Who were y'all playing, and what army did you end up playing?
Yeah, so round 1, we played into the Dojo. They were a very well put together team, and I think I can say this about all the teams that were at ATC, very, very strong. So that was really cool to be around and see just the level of competition. And I played into Stuart King. He was running their Imperial Knights. He was also running priority assets. And this is something we even talked about before this tournament for those that don't remember. As I said, be prepared for Knights. They are going to be around, whether it be singles or whether it be teams. Somebody's going to run, multiple big Knights on either priority or purge the foe. Like it's just going to happen because they have gotten better because of they don't have to do as much stuff to do the mission. And priority is nice for them because they can action and still shoot. It is not nearly as scary for them in a lot of these other stuff, and they can score that kind of stuff well. So, yep, Stewart was a great opponent, and he had a very interesting list that I think is incredibly solid. So he had double Castellan, Gallant, Warden, and then triple Helverin. So I played this on the Dawn of War, but not Dawn of War, the stepped Dawn of War
Sweeping.
mission sweeping engagement.
Yeah.
So that was
And
first.
also, I don't know, do you have his list up? We're just seeing
Yeah,
your
I'll pull it up right here. Yeah, so we were playing on the sweeping engagement one. So this was the first tournament of the edition, and I got the what I would consider probably one of my least desirable ones because I don't like the Dawn of War esque maps, but Knights definitely do.
yeah. Yeah, when you can hide kinda a few things around the board, and with how kind of clustered things feel, it's not hard to just toe in to a couple of things and shoot all the way across the map with very little effort.
Yeah, it was a very, very good list, and I think would punish a lot of armies because you have to be able to kill things. Like it's it it has to happen. Like I don't know how to explain it any better than that. Is like you have to still be able to kill things in 11th edition, even more so because some of these armies are going to have the very insane skew of 5 big knights, just like well, let's see, 1, 2, 3. So he had 4 big knights and 3 Helverins. So he was very close to max. And there's some armies that can't deal with this amount of pressure. So like the list was good, definitely very interesting. This was the Foe Breakers, the Gatewarden Lance, which is where you draw lines between your objective. Pretty much, you're going to do either your expansion objective and your opponent's expansion objective, or like your home and their home. Well, the problem is, and I got it pulled up right here, my opponent drew a line from this objective to my natural objective. So all of this space was within his buffed zone, which is all the stuff that I really need to get to as the mirror, because he was running priority assets. I need to get out to the central objective. I need to do things out there, which means that I am like he is getting his buff when I enter the zone, which is like very problematic for me. Yeah, so very, very interesting. Was not a surprise, thankfully, and to be fair, my list is very good at picking up knights because I have lethals, because I have access to -1 toughness, because I have access to fantastic AP. It just means that I'm gonna be in a position where, like, the Castellans drop, the Gallants drop. If I get into combat with you, you're definitely done. Like, you're not running he's not running a Lancer in this list, which means, like, if I can get into combat with him, which I did obviously with the Death Shroud Terminators, it's much harder. And this army doesn't have anything to screen with. So like the turn the Death Shroud Terminators came down was the turn they got into Big Knights.
Crazy. Who would have thought? Yeah, no, I think that's definitely one of the things I feel like as we kind of talk about these armies that really are just I take five big knights or very similar style lists that are just playing as elite as possible because of their their fear of the purge v purge style missions, right? Or even being this against purge, trying to just not give up kills if you can, right? The problem is you then don't have the ability to keep armies like yours who can 6-inch deep strike and charge at bay, right? Like that's kind of like a big crippling weakness of like you can try to play this way, but if people have the ability to just in general bring in good rapid ingresses, deep strike can do a lot of damage, right? Like they have a good retcad list or something like that, can easily just be picking up knights and you have very, very little that you can do about it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely fair. And this was definitely apparent in this list that without those screens, it became much harder for him to play the game in a way that he wanted to, which was like come up and murder me. Because even my Plague Marine squads are very lethal into big knights. So like not everyone has that. Death Guard is, as you know, Stuart said when we first played the game, he's like, yeah, this is probably not the matchup I want. I was like, no, you're probably right. Like this is not the one you want. Yeah, but overall led to a game win. It was fan. It was a good way to start the tournament, and I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
What was the at least like the WTC score?
The WTC score was like, oh, what I scored into him. It was 17-3.
Yeah, sounds pretty good.
Yep.
That's brutal. Yeah, I can't imagine trying to play with only tanks and seeing your death card list and being like, oh, I feel good about this.
It
Like,
gets much harder, right? Because it's like you still need to score the game. The crazy thing is, if this was 10th edition, that'd be 20-0. So like, I think you're gonna see this a lot when I talk about a lot of these games where I'm like, man, I felt in control of the game, and then my opponent was able to, with very minimal units, get points back. So a lot of these games were closer than they should be, and it's really caused me to evaluate kind of how I go about building lists. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it really does feel. I talked to John Holbrook a little bit. They went to a different team's tournament this last weekend, and it was very much kind of that sentiment of like, if you can't dumpster, and I mean dumpster by turn two, maybe turn three, and just really, really be crushing your opponent with a list, it's very, very hard to see that much differential. So it's kind of like a dumpster or draw. Like, are you going to just absolutely trample them so hard that you can maybe get the 20, which is very, very hard to do? Or is it going to just be they keep getting points because they have just enough shit left in the game to bring themselves up to like 5 points, which in a team's environment is a lot. If you're getting crushed and you're not even scoring maybe the last turn or two that much, if you can still get 5 points, huge.
Yeah, and I think like as people go about and they're building these lists, I would recommend taking a look at that specifically of like, hey, what can I do to be around at the end of the game? What can I do to be there? Because I'll be honest, like as long as you're breathing on the board, there are ways to get points. It is very, very easy to get points. And yeah, you just need to be there at the end of the game, which is huge.
Yeah, for sure. All right. What happened in the next round, Phil?
Yeah, so let's see here. I'll pull it up here. So we got the win. Event Horizon got the win into the dojo. Next, we played into Team Degen, which was a very good team. And I played into Eric Andrews. And Eric and I were doing the Death Guard mirror. So he decided to take Death Guard. I decided to take Death Guard. He was running Take and Hold with Champs and Paragons. And I obviously was running my triple, but I was on priority and he was on take and hold. And this is the first time that I see the Death Guard mirror with two different dispos. So it was very interesting overall. Eric's list I felt like was very well suited for the meta and had a few interesting tools that we'll just go over here real quick. For those that don't know, Champs is the one that allows you to change your what's it called? Contagions at the beginning of the battle round, which is actually beneficial, especially now with like -1 leadership to -1 OC. There is value here. Yeah. So he's running Lord of Poxes, Foul Blight Spawn, and a 10 mana Plague Marines, Biological Putrefier, Malignant Plague Caster, and another 10 mana Plague Marines, who he had in Rhinos, Lord of Contagion, Lord of Virulence, both with Death Shroud Terminators, which obviously we liked. 2 units of Rhinos, 2 units of Spawn, 3 haulers, and double poxwalker. So not the same list, not the same mission. But I will tell you right now, looking at this list, I told my teammates, I was like, look, guys, this is going to be a 10-10. Like, this very close, very minimal one way or another, but it is going to be relatively straightforward in terms of what Eric is trying to do, what I'm trying to do. It's going to come down to maybe a couple secondaries. Maybe if I'm able to deny him in some spots, he has a little bit more trash than I do in terms of better trash, and meaning this gas spawn. They're reliable, a lot more durable, and they can go out and do the thing, push the button. And I don't have those, but I do have a Death Route Terminator squad up on him. And then my trading pieces are a little bit more fundamental. So like my haulers and my plate
Low drones
blow drones,
or
thank you,
launchers, whatever.
are a little more efficient. My 5-mans can go out and kill some of these bigger things and potentially force him to have to down trade back into me. So overall, taking hold doesn't have to engage if they don't want to. Priority doesn't necessarily have to engage if they don't want to. It's a matter of how you score the secondaries. So yeah, I don't know what else to say about the game. It was interesting, but it was pretty straightforward. Death Guard v Death Guard.
Right. And as we talked about on the last one, right? If as long as you're keeping units alive, you're both just going to keep scoring, right? It's as long as no one puts the foot on the gas and no one is going to have a chance to really just take off with the game.
Yeah. I found that because he had those big 10 mans of Plague Marines, I didn't really want to commit my Death Shroud into a position where I was just going to lose them in a down trade and then just get picked up by a 10 mana Plague Marines. Wasn't necessarily like on my to do board of things I want, because that 10 mana Plague Marines will pretty much kill anything it looks at. I have to go back and like think about the game a little bit more because everything tells me it's a draw. Maybe there's a world where you could find a couple points. It finished 9-11 because he had bottom of 5 and he was able to eke out a couple extra points in like a ridiculous 22-point secondary turn and or a 22-point final turn and a big turn 4. So he was able to eke out a couple extra points. So he finished the game with a game win, and 11-9 was the WTC score differential.
Gotcha. Yeah, that sounds. I mean, that sounds. I think Death Guard, as we're talking about teams, though, right? In general, there's some matchups you still do not want, but same as in 10th edition, right? You have some hard to kill units. You still have good damage output into most things, right? In general, you might not want to see some things, but overall, I think Death Guard is still a very good army. At just like we have a pretty good floor on where we're at. We can always go up, but in general, like it is an army that generally is like we can hopefully put out an 8 into most things, worse against some other things.
Yeah. All right. And I'm about to show you what the floor is.
All right,
All right.
let's
So,
see it.
yeah. So we got the win again. So we were 2-0 undefeated on day one. It was a good, good way to start the tournament. So we knew going into day two, we were going to play a good team. So we played into Valkyrie, which obviously is a very good team. For those that don't know, they finished third overall. So they were, they were on the trajectory at that point as well as us to go in and get the dub. So I played into Conan Jennings, who is a very good Space Marine player. He is they had a few Team USA guys on this team, and I got paired into Ultramarines Blades. So I knew this was going to be a good match. I knew this was going to be a good opponent, and Blades is just good. Priority assets, it's very easy. You know who's good at pushing the button in terms of doing actions? Combi Weapon Lieutenants. So like they can go out, push the button, and be pretty much like non-interactable in some of these layouts. So I'll pull it up here in a second so y'all can see. But in terms of what that mission looked like, it was very interesting. But we'll go over the list first because I think if you're a Space Marines player, and you want to run Blades, this is close to what you should run. So he's got Marnius, Kato, who's now a support character, in a big squad of Victrix, like the whole banner, the whole 9 yards. You got a Captain in Gravis armor, Solo Dolo with the armor of Antonius, which gives him the funeral pain. Lieutenant with Combi, Intercessor Squad for the home, JPI in Deep Strike, which is obviously very solid. A single Ballistus. This actually isn't even that important. It's just a cheap tool to go out, touch an objective and, do an action or point and shoot through something, right? It has built-in rerolls, so why not? The double squad of Incursors, that the real stars of the show here, which are these two stupid land speeders, and then double Rep-X, Scout Squad, and the Hammer Strike, which is the strip cover Storm Speeder. So 2,000 points right on the nose, and you should be pretty pleased with a list like this. It's pretty freaking solid.
Yeah, that is tough. How easy is it to 6-inch deep strike next to Kato?
Impossible when he keeps them all the way back in his deployment zone. He knew I was hunting for him. He knew I wanted them to come out real bad, but he kept them very, very far back because he knew I was going to go after them the second they came out. So, because like my bloat drones are great into it. D6 plus 2 blast with full rerolls to hit and lethals. Like, I chew those guys up. But he kept them on his home objective for the first 3 turns of the game.
Yeah, that's fair. So obviously, this is the floor, as you said. I mean, I don't how bad is the floor? What did you end up scoring, and then how did you end up at kind of that differential?
Yeah, so I scored 3 points in this, so 17-3 overall. And it came down to 2 specific interactions that happened on the same turn. I was able to not bait. The combi weapon lieutenant came out to do an action on the middle for priority assets. He also pushed out with a storm speeder, or sorry, a regular speeder, land speeder, to get into my drone. The land speeder cannot kill the drone. I'll pass one of the 5-ups. You're not going to hit with everything, and even with oath, like it very rarely dies. So he came out, didn't kill the drone, and didn't the combi weapon lieutenant came out in a position where I was able to take advantage of him and get one of my haulers up because I didn't bring out any of the feta bloat drones early because they were too important for some of the things that were going on later. So I was able to go out and get within melter range of both. I did not kill either. So I rolled a 1 and a 2 on damage for my Fennec Blight Hauler into the drone, or sorry, into the land speeder, not killing that. And then also, I did not kill the combi weapon lieutenant because when I came out and killed him, he made 1 additional 5-up funeral pain, causing the combi weapon lieutenant to live, which meant that he was able to activate again with that model, and then the storm speeder was able to survive and continue to harass my objective. The problem was because the storm speeder lived, he was able to kill the drone on the next turn. I even overwatched trying to kill because it was on the storm. The land speeder was on 1 wound and it needed to die or else it was going to continue to harass my natural objective, and I wasn't able to do so. So the game was going to be a 10-10 because I didn't do both of those things. Unfortunately, momentum shifted back away, and I had to use Death Route Terminators to be a lot more conservative with them to maintain pressure, and it just doesn't work that way after I had to give up those 2 specific activations.
Gotcha. Yeah, that is tough for sure. Yeah, I mean, and Ultramarines are a thing. If you give them extra pieces, it does not feel great. Yeah, brutal.
No, it's got a lot of interesting tools. Obviously, it's just like the good stuff again. The double incursor squads with the meltas, with the melta mines that they have, or the remote mines, whatever they're called, plus grenades on top of that, plus a little bit of their shooting. Their combat is nothing to scoff at. Like it's all AP1. So it's like it's good. It forces saves. And in this edition, those things are really efficient. But the stars of the show are these new land speeders. They give a level of trading at 95 points that Space Marines did not have prior to that point, and I can see why everyone's taking them. I would say if you're running Space Marines and you don't have 2 of these in your list, what are you doing, dude?
Yeah, they seem pretty freaking solid. Yeah. I guess any other thoughts about just playing against Space Marines in general on priority assets? Or it's like just yeah.
So I'll show you now. Like this is the map we played in on priority assets. Let's get rid of these. And like this is just a good example of a good player doing good things on a good map is take a wild guess what this 32 mil base can do. when it's got decent movement. So I'll measure it out here so everyone can see. Let's see here. I think just do a little measure here. Yeah. So from the nub, right? My opponent can go 6 inches and get back behind this terrain, having never shot, maintaining hidden, and being right in this pocket, which is pretty good for combat weapon lieutenant that has a 6-inch flat reactive when you get within 9. So it pretty much means that it's always going to be safe, which is very, very, very annoying. And if you're running a combi weapon lieutenant, like especially this kind of a layout, really suits that. So I would strongly recommend one being cognizant of where the nubs are because it matters. Because if the nub was on this other side, right? Like if the nub was here, my opponent could do this and like go out, touch, and be back behind this terrain every time. And that should not be able to happen. But it's still very good to just have hidden, just sit right there. And then obviously, for those that aren't aware, is like it was just Rep X in a very safe position, all behind the terrain, not able to get targeted, not able to get shot at. And then it's just touch, touch. Oh, look, I can shoot everything I want to shoot at. Right. So you have to wait. You have to have a way to deal with this castle, whether it be when those Rep X's pointed out, I have enough AP, good efficient shooting, maybe that ignores cover that can pick them up in return, or I'm not engaging this castle in a meaningful way because everything on my objectives, maybe it maintains hidden. Maybe I'm able to, flip these objectives without getting on these by shooting off the profile. But obviously, you have to be prepared for our opponent to be able to touch this. So, like, this obviously is a very good layout for a traditional Space Marines list like that.
Yeah. Yeah, this seems solid for sure. That seems very tough to deal with. It's very interesting too. I think that the benefits that there are, especially to like infantry and some of those shooty profiles that you find in Space Marines, especially like they have really benefited a lot from the changes to 11th and how hard it is to actually get within range to deal with them. And I don't know if we've said this, but we'll say it for the 1800th time of maybe you should take a combi lieutenant. That has not changed. Insanely hard to deal with all of the rules, especially if you can, talk like Phil's talking about, get him behind that wall. Some walls are tall enough you just can't see him at all. But even if you can, it's so hard to deal with a 12-inch loan up that has a reactive move in 11th edition. Like and even not the combi lieutenant Cato, there's ways for them to have the gone to ground rule where they can make their hidden, boost up to just being gone to ground and is a 12-inch loan up for non-regularly loan up things. That it's just like, how the hell do I interact with this thing that can just move away from me?
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely fair. Okay, we'll go. So that turned into a round loss for us. Obviously, I got 3 points in that, so I am part of the reason we lost. But it was a very good game. Conan is a very good player, and his list is very dialed in for 11th edition, and you can definitely tell. Okay, next up, we played into Frank's Fighting Fazoli's Boys, a tongue twister of a name, a very good army comp together, and I think this is hands down the most interesting list that I played against for the entire edition or for the entire tournament, right? This is it. It was so interesting to see this combination of units. I haven't thought about AdMech in a minute. I'm thinking about AdMech now because Spencer showed me what good AdMech looks like. And I genuinely believe that, first of all, if you have all the models for all this kind of stuff, like, please go for it. But it was a very, very interesting list. So he's running, we'll go over the list here. So he's running Skitarii Hunter Core Fort and Lords of the Forge. He's got both Call and Thalia, the new AdMech character, a unit of Rangers, 2 units of Vanguard, mainly for the battle line keyword to boost, which is in Skitarii Hunter Cohort. You get those benefits when you're on battle line. So those are really important. 2 units of 3 Iron Strider Ballistari, one with autocannon, one with las cannon. These guys are ripped. Like, you can get the autocannons up to AP3. Holy cow, that does a lot of damage. With full rerolls to hit and full rerolls to wound because you're twin linked, and Belisarius gives the oath, like, they just murder things. Taraxi, very fast. Right? The fact that they can get up with decent OC on some of these objectives is really, really solid. Here's where the money is, though, folks. Servitor Battleclade. This is where the money's made. Mainly because the Underseer, who's the sergeant, has the Tech Priest keyword. So the benefit that you get for Hunter Cohort and Lords of the Forge means that the last dude has a 4-up invul and 5-up funeral paint and has the Tech Priest keyword. Guess what else this unit can do? It can advance and shoot, and then it can advance and do an action. They are dirt cheap at 65 points. They can go up and do everything that you would want them to do. And then as well as they just don't die. Like you do not want to put a reasonable thing out to kill this unit because you know what's going to come back in return? Those stupid Iron Striders. So like they're just going to come out and crack you, and that there's nothing real that you can do about it if you want to deal with these units. So you have to have enough trading pieces that you can go into your opponent, and not every army has those things. So like there's 3 of them, and I asked Spencer, I was like, "Dude, these seem really good. Are they battle line?" He goes, "No, because if they were, I'd take 6 of them." I was like, "Yeah, about makes sense. Like they're pretty good. They don't necessarily have like a butt ton of damage, but like for what they do and what they force your opponent to do, they force your opponent to trade down. They there was multiple times where I killed it down to the battle clade, and because of the how wounds are allocated, right? Like all the 4-up insults going to him, so he just passes them all. So it's a little annoying.
Yeah, that's it makes sense to me. Guardsmen should 100% be 75 points, and that unit should be 65. Like, no questions asked. That makes total sense to me. That's fucking insane. I don't
Yeah,
understand.
it's so good. Those guys were the star of the show. Like they impressed me so much. Sicarian infiltrators, these are your standard infiltrators. They're a good 5-man. They go out and trade. And just because they're fast, but you have these tech priest units and these battle line units that in this combo you have an up down. So you can very easily pick up a unit of battle line and get them where you need them to be to boost these ruststalkers and infiltrators and all the AP that you want, right? So like very, very interesting there. And then 2-man of ruststalkers, they're durable. They're durable than me, which is insane because I murder everything. But when everything has a 5-up invul and a 5-up feel no pain potentially, and they're all 2 wounds, they can live longer than you're expecting. So like they go out, they live into something, and now you have to concern yourself with falling back. My army does not have fallback, shoot, and charge. And yeah, this was a very, very good list. I loved it. Like it, Spencer, he joked about it. He's like, "Oh, I want to make my opponent miserable." But in a way, like this forces so many issues that it's like it can be tough. It can be very. I couldn't imagine a new player trying to deal with an army like this. I can understand why Spencer likes this because he also runs GSC, and we talked about that for a bit. But yeah, this was a very, very good list, and I liked it a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly, I think just looking at this of like kind of how this army plays and stuff is far more similar to like how I and some other guard players used to play our lists of just like, here's these tough durable units that is just a problem to deal with and it feels like a horrible trade down, right? But where AdMech is pointed versus guard and their actual durability because they have invulns and all this other stuff. Like AdMech is honestly in like such an interesting spot for that play style specifically.
Yeah, because they have ways to trigger battle shocks. The rush stalkers specifically, they have good access to AP. They have good access to rerolls. They have good access to twin links. They have great ways to ignore cover, right? They have efficiency in shooting and combat. And then most importantly, for these battle clade, which I think like I'm gushing over them now at this point, but at the start of the show, for a unit that maybe sometimes struggles with a little bit of mobility, if you don't have 3 of these in every one of your lists that actually needs to do actions, I don't know what the frick you're doing because they're mind blowing. Maybe they're less good when they don't have the invul, but jeez, just the capabilities going out, doing an action, and being like, "There's 65 points. You could murder them." I do not care.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's true. And, Phil, you should have got one more point instead of the 10-10.
We were 1 point away. It was a draw exactly, and to a great group of boys. It was very, very well fought, which shows how close we were. But we were 1 point away from a win. We only got a draw, and once again, you can blame Phil for that because he got a 10 versus an 11. And to be fair, I was never gonna get an 11 because I had to have the perfect turn 5 to try this break a 10-10. Like, yeah, I had to get like the perfect charge off and consolidate onto the objective and kill everything. Like he heroic with Iron Striders to try to stop me, and my Lord of Contagion just went off. I should not have gotten a 10-10. I was fighting for that. So it was a good list. It was not what I wanted to play. That list is very apt at dealing with me, and I just can't push into it realistically.
Yeah. No, that's very, very fair. It is very solid, and it's nice to see the AdMech feels like they have an even more solid place in 11th edition than they did in
So
10th.
good.
Like they
It
they
was
had
so
some
good.
shine, you know, after the updates last fall and stuff, but even then, like it's nice if I don't know. I feel like there's even more of a reason to bring them out in 11th.
But yeah, for sure. If I had AdMech, like this list after seeing it played, it's up there. Okay.
Nice.
All right. So we are 2-1-1 with that last draw. Unfortunately, that means we are out of the running for top three. But our last round is into Keel Hall Gaming. They had a pirate themed comp, as in they were all dressed as pirates and they had a big chest with like gold coins and all that stuff. It was very fun. But at the end of the day, we got a good pairing into Imperial Knights again, which is like my bread and butter. I am very good at killing knights. I played it at the beginning, and now it's only fair that I get to play it at the end. And this is the traditional bring Purge, bring Imperial Knights. He's got a Lancer, he's got an Atropos, he's got a Castellan, got a Crusader, and then double Warglaive. So once again, no real capabilities to screen. He does have an up-down Lance with Mysterious
Your
Guardian.
list, the list isn't up.
Sorry. So I'll go through it one more time. It's Imperial Knights, it's Purge, it's Free Blade, which I like. It has efficiency and rerolls for the hit, the wound, the damage. And then so you got a Etch Post, Lancer, Castellan with Mysterious Guardian, which makes him the up down Lancer or the up down Castellan, the Night Crusader with Hunter's Eye, which is good, and then the Armature Warglaive, two of them with the melted guns and thermal spears. So even less pieces, only four big knights, but obviously the Lancer is quite solid. But the problem with an army like this is once again, you don't have any screens. And if Death Shroud Terminators don't see screens, they are licking their chops.
Yeah, yeah, that is a very, very tough matchup to get as a nice. Did you guys talk to them after? Were they did it kind of fall through the cracks, or did they think it was better than it was? I'm curious.
Yeah, so they had rejected it. Both times I'd gotten into Knights was in the scrum. So unfortunately, it was a matter of they did not the neither Knight player wanted to play me, which is fair because that is not a good matchup. But both times it happened in the scrum because they were unable to they didn't prioritize pulling it out early, which is the trend that I think a lot of people who are doing pairings don't necessarily think about enough of like, hey, what do I actually need to remove to make my scrum safe? Of like, hey, how do I make the last three the safest possible versus trying to be in a position where like, I ended up getting paired into the one thing I didn't want to see, which is to be fair.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's just one of the things that we're gonna find. And I know your first Knights player was priority assets as well, and stuff, but I feel like a lot of these Knights lists are just generally they're trying to attack with them. They're trying to get them into, favorable matchups of stuff that just can't really handle that stat check. But if you can get them to the scrum and you have lists like yours, I think it's one of those things where like that's where you can maybe find some points in a team setting.
Yeah. It's a bigger conversation about like, hey, how do I force them into knights? Have we created a knights list that is good enough? But we have also created something else to pair with said list and say, okay, you're not going to take this really good list that's into you, but we're going to force you to take this other, like, we're going to force you to take knights because you know how bad this one is. So, like, for example, say it was like GSC. GSC was the defender, and it was like a traditional OC Outlander Claw, something like that. And I were to give you Death Guard and I were to give you knights, right? Like, are you gonna take the Death Guard option, which is real bad for GSC because of the amount of flamer? Let's say I built it right. It's got flamers, it's got the great Overwatch, it's got good reactives, it's never gonna die in combat, right? Like I'm just gonna dice it up. Or are you gonna take the big knight list, which GSC infamously struggles to kill in a lot of different scenarios. So like yeah, you have to be able to pair those kind of things up. The thoughts you need to put into a team comp if you're going to do something like that have to be pretty focused on that army.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Okay. Well, y'all ended up seventh, as we said. You had a good showing, a first real event of 11th edition. What are some things that you walked away from the event feeling like you had kind of learned, or things that maybe we feel like haven't exactly been explained super well by GW, and stuff that were perhaps shed some light upon? that weekend.
Yeah, so there's a few things that came up in some of the interactions that were made clear by the GW staff that was in attendance. So let's go over Fight on Death first. Fight on Death no longer happens instantaneously, no matter what. So in the verbiage for Fight on Death, it says that the models are not removed until after that unit has activated. E. Okay, so let's use this as an example because this is the Games Workshop core rules. This is their ruling on overrun, but this isn't where it says the ruling. It says it in the app. So in the
Well,
inflict
yes.
damage step, it clarifies how fight on death works, and it removes every instance of instant speed fight on death. It says that the unit will only activate until when it's turn to activate. So in this example here, so Demon Prince and Berserkers charge it. Both of these units have the keyword for fights first. The Rhino does not. It does not have the fights first keyword, so it would be fighting last. So let's say the Demon Prince cracks this Rhino, but the Rhino has fight on death. This unit of Berserkers cannot pass through where the Rhino is. It cannot take the space because the Rhino is not removed from the battlefield. It stays there until this Rhino is selected to activate. So they cannot pile in through it. They cannot pile in past it. This is treated as a live model until this unit activates, and then it is removed. So if this unit does not have the fight's first ability, but it has fight on death, it will not activate until all the fight's first units are done.
Yeah. So you just get a free roadblock.
You do. Absolutely. This is now a roadblock. Anything with fights first will physically prevent the overrun from happening into something else. Very interesting. Definitely something that every player needs to know because a lot of the times it's very easy to assume what the 10th edition standard would be for 11th edition. So, yeah. Another thing, super important, is priority. Priority is now simplified to active player and defending player. This is also in the app. It is not in these core rules. The iteration now is the active player who that is the player whose turn it is will do all of their simultaneous abilities at the same time in any order that they choose. So if you have 3 abilities that happen at the end of the command phase, you choose the order of which abilities, like how you do those abilities, and you choose the order in. But you can no longer say, "Oh, I'm the active player, and my opponent has end of command phase abilities, and I have end of command phase abilities. I'm going to force my opponent to do those first," because now it stipulates that the defending player does all of their abilities after in whatever order they choose. So it's active player, all their abilities, defending player, all their abilities.
Yeah, that is very very interesting. Even though we've talked about, right, you cannot rapid ingress and then do an Overwatch with the same unit, you now do have that ability to do an Overwatch, whatever, and maybe clear out space because your Overwatch went well enough that now that opens up an area for a rapid ingress because you, as the defending player, opposing player, cannot be dictated by the active.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah, that's,
Significant. Very
yeah,
significant. And it's a very easy thing to get wrong. And if your opponent like gets that wrong or you get it wrong, it's okay. Like mistakes happen, especially in a new edition. And so if you look up active player in the Warhammer core rules, which is free on the Warhammer 40k app, I strongly recommend having that downloaded, ready to go, because a lot of those rulings are in there. So super important, super impactful for a game for sure.
yep. One of the other things that Phil mentioned before the show is that if you want to ditch your secondaries, you can only gain CP from them if they are from your current active turn. So you can't sit on something, not do it, and then ditch it the next turn because you weren't able to get it. If you want to ditch it for a CP, you have to do it the turn you drew.
Yes. Yep. Which I don't know. I did it once whole tournament where I ditched it for a CP because I knew I was keeping the majority of them to try to max score because a lot of my games were in the much higher end of 80 to 90 points pretty much every round except for one into Conan. So yeah, it was impactful for sure.
Yeah. And at least one other thing that they did rule differently, but be according to the event companion, which is a very interesting thing. It is that if you were a defender, you get to place your models down first. You get the first placement of models if you so choose. You are the defender, so you get to choose. If you are, rejected or the champion version, as it says in the event companion for teams, you roll off as we always used to. But according to the event companion for teams under step 4, I believe, it does say that you, as a defender, just automatically get to have the first placement of your unit. So that is very strong when it comes to kind of building your team comp and, hey, this is who we're looking at to defend. Having an army that can go take up a lot of space on an infiltrate and also maybe be very aggressive with other infiltrates is some tech that isn't so swingy anymore, right? If you're a defender, you can guarantee some board space.
Yeah. I don't see that continuing though. I think it was just ATC doing something like that. I'd be surprised if everyone else didn't follow the actual tournament pack of saying if you're the defender, you're actually the defender. I'm very curious in terms of how that actually,
Yeah.
rolls out.
Yeah. It was the first like conflict in what's in the packet and what they actually decided to go with for that event. I know at my event, for those tuning in who are coming up to Laramie in 2 weeks, we're gonna go with what it says in the companion because why not? Let's see what you dirty defenders bring and what you decide to do.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of other really interesting things there. The Necrons were ruled that they can do their obnoxious resurrect and then resurrect support characters and then start resurrecting their models, which was pretty obnoxious to see on the board. Thankfully, one of my teammates there was taking Necrons and was doing that broken thing, but it's a problem. It really is. Uh, Tau obviously were very good in this edition, and I liked seeing them on the board. I think there's a lot of good armies, but teams will eventually narrow. Like this field is going to narrow very quickly in terms of what is going to be good. So you got to be prepared. And I'll say right now, if you haven't watched our a live stream where Lane and I were going over it, the armies that I believe are at the top of the meta right now: Tau, T-Suns, just generic Space Marines. I think just ultras are insanely good. And I don't think there's anything that's really gonna talk me off that. I just think they're incredibly solid. I don't see how they are gonna struggle. Necrons, EC, because they have the best version of Defilers now. I think Orcs, for me, are up there as well. You could throw like any of the other Space Marine variants, Dark Angels, Blood Angels, which I hold in very high regard, and then demons as well. So like Zinch demons, Shadow Legion, just absolutely buku busted. And honestly, I love the AdMech list. I thought that was really good. Like I could see how they could get the job done. So there's other armies that obviously will go up there and compete and will be good into certain lists. But those ones definitely stood out for me specifically.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I'm glad you got to go have some fun, get some data for us. I feel like the whole community is just like waiting to see what actually happens. And then we're waiting for, some FAQs and maybe a little bit of balancing to come through. But 11th in general, I feel like hasn't felt totally awful. There's some things that are like, whoo, that is strong that you need to be aware of so that you can use it yourself or at least know that your opponent can and be ready to deal with that. But yeah, I think I'm excited to see where we end up in the next 3 months. I think we're in a pretty strong place for the start of the edition.
I think we are as well. I think the dispositions provide enough uncertainty that it's gonna feel that's gonna help keep the meta shifting a little bit as we slowly build up to what this meta looks like. So, like, there are things that we can do that we barely explored what 11th edition is gonna look like. So, I don't think there's an army in the game that can't play in 11th edition after seeing all the different comps and stuff like that. So, like, yeah, you should be happy. Play what you want to play and tailor it to these dispositions. And there's a path there. There's
Yeah.
very much a path there.
Yeah, and I think Phil mentioned it very, very well early on when he was talking about his list. You know, play what you're familiar with, right? We're learning a whole new edition. Play the units you know are efficient, that you know are, generally good, and you can kind of learn the game and all the new core rules as you're really diving into this for the first couple weeks or months. Who knows how much you're able to play, but it's so much easier to just kind of start with a place you're comfortable with.
Mm. Yeah, very much so. And we can't wait to see. So don't forget, if you have lists or you have questions, you can hit us in the Discord. Myself and Lane are in there all the time. And we love talking about 40K. We have plenty of members that are in there that also like talking about 40K. And we want to share this community with as many people as possible. So hit us up in there. Hit us up in the comments if you have any questions, if you have any thoughts, because we have more tournaments to come. Lane and I, obviously, we have the 11th edition tournament up in Laramie in 2 weeks. And then more tournaments after that. So we're getting after.
Yeah, it's going to be a busy fall again. So looking forward to it. If you have not liked or subscribed, please do so. That helps us out a ton. As Phil said, join the Discord, comment below. We love to see it. And last but not least, do not forget that victory isn't given. It is forged, and it is forged right here on Master Crafted. We will see you all next time.
See you guys.